How many of you hate aggregation? Raise your hand. I hate it and I love it. There's a reason that it's here. The reason is that back early in the day, transactions were available online at the banks through online banking, and customers could go manually download that data. But doing that across multiple financial institutions is problematic. And so as a result, aggregation was born. What we know about aggregation is that it's slow. Specifically, while some aggregators can get pending transactions, most of the time, the OFX files, QFX files that aggregators typically go and fetch only have cleared transactions. And so 1 to 3 days between the time that you actually conduct the transaction to the time that it's cleared at the bank. Number two, the ag ecosystem is quite fragile. I have 10 different financial apps that I'm currently running. I have 15 different financial institution relationships. My credentials to all of my apps are sitting in the databases of every aggregator in this room. If I change my password at one of my institutions, it breaks all of my apps. It's fragile. It's very inefficient. So it's based on a pull methodology. And when we go and we aggregate at Finicity, we go and we fetch 15 days worth of transactions and we harvest the new ones. And so we're having to throw out information. Oftentimes, ags will result in nothing. It's like catching fish. And so those that build on top of aggregators are doing a pull on top of a pull. Very inefficient for the banks, inefficient for the apps, and a bad user experience. So how do we fix this? How do we fix this as an industry? Well, we've come up with a technology and a brand that we call TxPUSH. Let me tell you a little bit about TxPUSH. So back in 2006, Blaine Cook was kind of the first man in to talk about OAuth, and he started the OAuth initiative. And there's a long history of OAuth, but the current active standard is OAuth 2.0. The TxPUSH initiative promotes OAuth 2.0 as a replacement to the current mechanism for authentication with the bank. Similar to login with Facebook or login with Twitter, the idea is that the bank becomes a platform for authentication using tokenization to get access to the data rather than having to store credentials. Back in 2007 as well, Jeff Lindsay introduced the concept of webhooks. And webhooks are simple HTTP calls that happen at the time of an event. In many cases, you combine the programmable web with the idea of the evented web, and we have an entirely new programmable web that's a combination of both push and pull. But in the case of financial transactions and third-party applications, push is always better than pull. So the evented web combined with financial information, we call that the evented financial web. What we need as an industry is we need a sea change of how transactions are delivered to third-party applications. We need to improve the security. So rather than credentials sitting in databases of aggregators, that it's a tokenized access. Data access should be commoditized. The foundational ideas to TxPUSH include OAuth 2.0, webhooks, and a common API that's implemented at every financial institution. So the TxPUSH Special Interest Group and TxPUSH Technology. So when we thought about this, we thought this would be a really cool way to front-end our aggregation. So if you're a third-party developer and you wanted to get real-time transaction push when we fetch it from the banks, that would be cool. But we thought, you know what would be even better is that if we could change the industry. A boil the ocean strategy. If we could get the banks to adopt this, that would be very cool. So our mission is to truly democratize financial event data in real time, develop new standards for auth, push, and pull, and improve the financial security of data access at financial institutions. And truly that's going to unlock innovation unlike any other initiative